Well, I'm really excited about this project. What I'm going to make today is a frame that can hold 9 works on paper. And behind each work on paper will be a thumbtack board. So essentially I can remove one of the works on paper and replace it with another one, and that will change the whole painting. It's going to be a fun project, so let's get started. Now the first thing that you'll need to do, and it's basically the foundation for this project, is make a braced panel. And I've made a video on how to make a braced panels, and you can find that on my channel. And the only difference between this braced panel and the video that I've already made is that I used 1/2-inch plywood for this project, so I have a substance that I can nail to. Since I already have my panel made, the next step is to band the edge. And I thought I'd add, I'm using poplar for this project because poplar is a good wood to use when you're painting something. And the reason for that is it's a nice tight grain with very few knots. I've just cut a miter, and I put the inside of the miter on the edge of the panel. And now I'll come over here with my pencil and mark a line. Now this line will represent the inside of my next miter cut. Now that my miters are cut, I'm ready to attach the edge band, and I'll use a little glue and some nails in my brad nailer. Notice how I'm using my hand as a guide so I get nice even lines of glue. The bottom of the edge band is flush with the bottom of the supports on the braced panel. Okay, well the edge band is now attached to the panel, and the next step is to start to cut and attach the dividers. I want to make sure that all my dividers are evenly spaced, so I've cut a piece of scrap wood at 13 inches, which is the distance between each divider, and I'll use that as I attach the divider to the braced panel. Well, that's it for the vertical dividers. Now I'm going to attach the horizontal dividers. I'm about to attach the last divider. Now I'm calling these dividers the horizontal dividers, and I'm using the same system where I've cut a piece of scrap wood at 17 inches, and this will make sure that I'm evenly spaced on each box. Well, I really don't want to see the corkboard behind each drawing. So what I'm going to do is picture frame each of these squares with a piece of trim that I'll make on the table saw. And that piece of trim will measure right around 1/2 inch deep by 1 1/8 wide. And after I picture frame each square, that'll leave me with a space, and I'll fill that space with the corkboard. And then when I attach the drawing will hide the corkboard. Now I'm going to make the molding to picture frame the squares. And this piece of 5/4 poplar will be perfect for the job, because 5/4 generally measures about 1 1/8. All I have to do is set my table saw to 1/2 inch and rip a bunch of strips, and that will be my molding for the frames. Now with all the molding made, I can get to work on the frame. And the first thing I'm going to do is put a miter on one edge. With my first miter cut, I can hold the miter against the opposite edge of the square and then put my line, and that's where I want to cut. Before I put any glue on the molding, I'm going to check and make sure it fits. And that fits good, so I'm going to put a little glue on the back here. And then nail it down. And now I'll do the same thing on the rest of the frame. Alright, well that's one down and 8 more to go. But now you can see the space that will be filled with the corkboard. Okay, that's the last piece of molding. Now the next step is to cut the corkboard with a space in the center. Well, I just ran out to the lumber yard to buy the corkboard. And when I got there I learned 2 things. And one is, the corkboard's not solid. It turns out that it's about a 1/16 of an inch laminate over a homosote. Now, the next thing is a sheet of 4x8 corkboard is $145. I didn't know that. So I ended up buying just something called soundboard, which is like a homosote, but it's a little denser, and this was only $12. So I think that this will work good, and it just didn't seem like a big difference between this and the corkboard, since it was just a thin veneer. Alright, well that's about it. The only thing I need to do now is to sand and paint the frame. And if you'd like to see how I do that, just click on the link at the end of the video. Now, I was going to attach these pieces of soundboard with some glue and a few nails, but I've decided to hold off on that. What I'm going to do is paint the frame first and then attach the soundboard with a few pieces of double stick tape. That way, if for some reason this material doesn't really work, I can replace it with something that does. So, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.